If you've got a French to English dictionary, could you check something for me? See if Bassan literally translates to person whose insanity creates entire universes.
Leaving exospace.
3, 2, 1, exit.
Whoa, easy.
We're late.
Yeah, well, better late than dead.
You want to drive?
Whoa, put your hand back on the joystick. Laureline, put your hands back on the joystick. Laureline, will you please put your hand back on the joystick?
Will you stop complaining about my driving?
Yes, I'm sorry. You're a great driver. You're the best driver in the entire universe.
Oh, thank you.
Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets stars Dane DeHaan as Valerian, a 28th century agent trying to get to the bottom of the mystery of what's happening at Space Station Alpha. I've been trying to get to the bottom of the mystery of whether Luc Besson can make great sci-fi movies again. Is the answer here? Well, here's 5 things you might want to know about Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets. This is a bit of a sad one for me because I think there's a lot to really like about this movie, and it all seems to be brought down quite a bit by just one fatal flaw. We'll get there in a bit. Let's start with the good stuff. My goodness, does Luc Besson know how to create worlds. The world building here is mind-blowing. Now, I'm not sure all of it makes sense, but I think that's only because we're only given a little over 2 hours to live in it, and he is building so much out. I love the setup of this world. I love what he's saying about what the future could look like. I love how in-depth he goes into this sci-fi universe creating. It really reminds me of something Tolkien did with Lord of the Rings, where it really gets into the granular minutia of what these different creatures and universes and in technology and all that stuff. He does more sci-fi creative, like ingenuitive technology building in 5 minutes of this movie than most sci-fi movies do in their entire run. It's like new concept a minute in this thing, and I absolutely adored that about it. I will say this. No matter what happens with the reception to this film, it will be a cult hit. Because of that expansive world building, people will latch onto this and want to know more about it. That is guaranteed, no matter what happens with the outcome. The other thing it has going for it is Besson is really telling a good story here. I found it interesting. Now, not as interesting as the world around it, but it still held its momentum. I wanted to know how it was going to resolve. I cared about the characters at the center, the species, the beings at the center of what's going on here in a way that I wanted to know what was going to happen with them. That takes a skill in writing story, so I loved the momentum of it. I also loved the thematics of it. I loved what it was trying to say about how we approach the future, how we approach, let's just say conquest, how we approach those things. I thought the themes were really well laid out here, so it served the story well in a universe you were already excited to explore. Now, here's where it might turn for some people. This is still a positive for me, but I'm going to give it a yellow because some people may be turned off or distracted by this. It's silly. There's a real silliness to this movie that I haven't seen him do in this way since The Fifth Element, which I love. So for me, it's not a negative because I'm used to it. It's an over-the-top type of rambunctiousness that honestly to me is kind of intoxicating. I love how heightened it is, how surreal it is, and how funny it is to me at times. I will say it also saves the fact that a lot of this CG and the effect work does have kind of a false sheen to it. You know, you can tell it was put together in computers, but because it's kind of this silly toned environment in some ways, this over-the-top heightened environment, that stuff actually works. So let's get into the negatives. I'm going to start with a fairly minor one and then go to the big one that really brings it down. The minor one is the writing. Just the dialogue writing is really bland here. There's not a lot going on with a clever turn of phrase or the way that the sentences and the things that people are saying to each other work together to create emotion. It's very basic point A to point B to point C dialogue construction. So there's not a lot fun going on there in the words themselves. You kind of have to look to the world around you to have that fun. So the visuals are bringing the energy, but the words have none. Of course, even that could be fixed if you fixed the one major flaw of the movie, And here we are. It's miscast. Dane DeHaan is awful for the part of Valerian. He does not work in this movie at all. Now, hear me clearly. I don't think Dane DeHaan's a bad actor. I think he's been in some great stuff. He does great work when it's in his wheelhouse. But this is not a part for him. I think of Bruce Willis in the original Fifth Element and the kind of the sarcasm and the wit that he brought to it. DeHaan doesn't have that. So when you're dealing with these very dry lines, they need somebody that can infuse them with a little bit of sarcastic energy or a little bit of fun to them, and he just can't bring it. Now, I haven't said a lot about his co-star, his fellow lead. I believe the actress's name is Kara. And that's because I think she isn't given much to play off here. She's really dry too, and I think maybe that was miscast as well. But I really do think it falls on Dane's shoulders for this as Valerian and as this star. You want somebody who you want to root for. You want to be with him. And he just doesn't do that. He's boring through the entire movie. If you cast this movie differently, I think it brings it up a full letter grade, and I think we're talking about sequels. But as is, it just doesn't work. Overall, I feel like Valerian in the City of a Thousand Planets is a wonderful concept, an interesting return for Luc Besson to that energy of the Fifth Element, unfortunately brought down quite a bit by bad casting of the lead. I give it a B-. Thanks for checking out this Your Movie Friend review. We'll get to the Best Ever Challenge here in a bit. Before we do, let's connect further. Hit me up on Twitter, Aaron Dicer, AARONDICER. We have a lot of fun chatting movies there. You can also do the podcast. It's SiftPop, SiftPop. It's a weekly pop culture podcast. If you do the podcasting thing, just search for SiftPop. You'll find us there. Subscribe. Let us know what you think. Also on YouTube. Subscribe on YouTube. Comment on YouTube. Really appreciate the little community that's building here, and the community of support that's building for this YouTube channel. Thank you for that as well. Support starts at $3 a month at Patreon. Some pretty fun perks that go along with that. Humbled by the fact that you would give money to make sure that this keeps going the way it is. So thank you for doing that. If you'd like to give, you can go to patreon.com/yourmoviefriend. And you don't even have to give. Just go there, check it out, see what the perks are, see if they're interesting to you. All right, on to the Best Ever Challenge, where you name the best movie ever in a particular category. Also, try to identify my choice. Let's go, since we had to call him out for being the one major flaw of the movie, let's go with Best Dane DeHaan Movie Ever. Kind of refocus on the positive, shall we? Best Dane DeHaan Movie Ever. For mine, I'm going to have to go with the one that even before it came out, I knew it was most likely to eventually take a shot at a stage play. Figure that out. Take a guess at mine in the comments. First person to get it right does get a point. Leave your choice there as well. I'd love to see it. As always, here's a few extra seconds to hit subscribe. Just click my face.